Hey guys, so here I am at The Local, which is a hostel in Long Island City. We have all these awesome people waiting to hear this panel. And like I promised, a Facebook Live feed, so thanks Guitaro for that. Alright, we should be starting in a moment. Well, enjoy! Whoops! Alright. You can see all the panelists? Okay, awesome. Alright. I'm also the camera person, so I just need to make sure that everyone is focused. Okay. Alright.
A little muffled. Okay. Oh, thanks for the water. Awesome. Tap water, New York tap water. New York finest. The best water ever. Okay.
Yeah, I know.
Hey everyone, welcome to The Local and the ITA Multi-Hub event. Today we're going to be talking about building sustainable cities. My name is Patricia Serrano. I'm the co-lead for the New York City Hub. I have a travel blog, Fresh Traveler, and I'm also a travel agent. And I'm obsessed with off-the-beaten-path adventures. Tonight's event is to highlight some of the amazing sustainable activity that's happening here in New York City because, as you know, we don't really have federal support for climate change or any environmental initiatives. So cities are the vanguard of what is happening sustainably. So I wanted to introduce you to 4 amazing projects here in the city. So, and people who are spearheading the projects. So we have Augustine Pasquet. I hope I said that right. Okay, can I give him the mic?
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so he's the owner of Untapped, which is an online magazine that features off-the-beaten-path adventures. Do you want to say anything else?
Yeah, we are...
Let's turn that on.
Untapped Cities. Anyone knows Untapped Cities here? Yeah? Not bad. We are a web magazine and tour company which helps New Yorkers rediscover their city. So we unearth like New York's most surprising places, facts, events, and things like this. To make people go like, what? I had no idea this thing existed, and it's right next to where I live or where I work, and yeah, that's what we do.
So off the beaten path hidden gems that you wouldn't necessarily see in a guidebook. That's Untapped Cities. And then we have Anastasia Flakios, is that correct? Okay. Who is the VP and the co-founder of Brooklyn Grange Rooftop Farm. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Brooklyn Grange is a rooftop farm, events venue, and landscaping company. We started in 2010 with the aim of creating a triple bottom line model for urban agriculture here in New York City, and greening as much of the city as possible. We believe that urban agriculture has the capacity to monetize the creation and maintenance of the green spaces that cities really sorely need in 2018, and that's what we're up to.
And sitting next to her is Dawn Gervaisi, a Brooklyn native who's from Bensonhurst. I've actually been on one of his Made in Brooklyn tours in Bensonhurst, which is super awesome. So if you haven't explored the neighborhood of Bensonhurst, he's your go-to guy.
Thanks, Patricia. Yes, I'm the owner and producer of Made in Brooklyn Tours, where you see who's making it in Brooklyn. These are tours with the Made in Brooklyn theme, neighborhood tours with the Made in Brooklyn theme. And each tour is a compromise between a factory tour and a shopping tour. And on the tour, we go visit businesses that reflect who's making it in Brooklyn today. And really, I would say that Made in Brooklyn Tours is a big supporter of small businesses, especially small creative businesses.
Okay, and then we have Devin Showmaker. Rooftop Reds, which is an urban winery.
Okay, thank you. I love how maybe my name was the easiest name to pronounce, which is always messed up. So thank you for not saying shoemaker. That's a big win for me. Anyways, thanks guys for coming out. Rooftop Reds is the world's first commercially viable rooftop vineyard system. I went through viticulture and enology studies here in the state of New York. One of the primary focuses of Rooftop Reds is to focus on local wine production. So we give a huge spotlight to the Finger Lakes wine region. A lot of the Finger Lakes wineries are very small producers that are either family owned or are family affiliated and have small staffs and small budgets and small productions, but are producing world-class wines. And to get their product downstate, and compete in this market is challenging, to say the least, for these small wineries. And so Rooftop Reds, one of our main missions is to give a spotlight to this region. It is the fastest wine growing region in North America. So it's really getting a lot of prestige, but still the penetration of the New York City market is difficult and costs money. And it's kind of, when you don't have a large team, it's like where to start. So Rooftop Reds is now the #1 seller of upstate wine productions in New York City, and we've done that in 2 years. So we're kind of using the rooftop, this new rooftop urban agriculture venture as a way to really promote drinking locally and also bringing our cities and making them more sustainable for all of us who live here.
So we brought together these movers and shakers to discuss how to build sustainable cities through travel, because this is an Impact Travel Alliance event. So what we're interested in is how do our executive director right here. Basically, we're going to discuss a couple topics. It's going to be a casual conversation, and then we'll have room for questions. So if you have any questions, just keep that till the end, okay? All right, so one of the things that we are interested in talking about today is over-tourism. Okay, we live in New York City. Not only are there so many people who live here, but so many tourists. So what are the impacts we are seeing from over-tourism and the challenges that you guys face in attracting clients to the more unique adventures that are off the beaten path?
I'm going to hand this back, though. See that move?
Thank you, Darren. Actually, I was this morning at a meeting with NYC and Company, which is basically promoting NYC tourism nationally and internationally. And there are 62 million people who come visit NYC every year, so it's indeed gigantic. I would say the main challenges that we face when we want to highlight what's more unique, different, off the beaten path in NYC is the lack of awareness. They're very simple. Many people who travel to NYC do so via book their trip via travel agents, etc. And the activities that are being offered, if you want to discover New York, are very often like the same ones. It's like take a helicopter tour, go to the 9/11 Memorial, go to the top of the box, etc. So it's most likely you're going to stay in Manhattan, and if you go outside of Manhattan, maybe you go to Williamsburg, but beyond this, it's challenging to change mentalities, because 10 years ago, since the rezoning of Williamsburg, a little over 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it was not as developed as it is today. So we have to change mentalities from the people who work in the travel business in order to show them that there is way more than what they've been used to doing, and which is working, because the tourism is growing every year in New York. So obviously what they're doing is working, but my job at Untapped, one of the things I do every day is to push to show that there are more things to do in other places. So lack of awareness is probably the biggest challenge, and what we are working hard to fight, because we work with Devin to do tours of Rooftop Reds in the summer to get a wine and glass, I guess a rental. And then obviously I have went lunch. And then these are like amazing activities, but the challenge is like to make it known beyond people who live in New York.
And how long have you lived here?
I've lived here for 6 years.
Okay, so Dom is a local Brooklynite, right? So I'd like to ask Dom to answer that question, but also seeing the changes that you've seen throughout your entire lifetime living here. Could you talk about that?
Sure. So first part of the question, you know, I am a native Brooklynite, but I'm also a New Yorker. For a time, I lived on, you know, just a couple of blocks away from Wall Street, and I'm aware of the complaints of, you know, walking down the street where people walking 4 across, for example, or there might be a large tour going on congesting the streets and so on. So I'm actually really hyper aware about that. And I think in terms of over-tourism, what contributes to over-tourism is if you have tours that don't respect the community they're doing a tour in. And the people, those who are actually conducting the tour, we're setting an example. We're setting a very important example. And it's by our example that the people that are on the tour will follow. So it's up to us to make things clear. For example, when I start a tour, I often start by saying, listen, we're in a small, tight neighborhood like, let's say, Dumbo. So always make way for pedestrians. We're still in Brooklyn, we're still in New York City. People want to get from point A to point B, so make way for pedestrians. On my tours, I don't use a noise-emitting device, okay? I do tours of 3 different neighborhoods, Williamsburg, Dumbo, Red Hook, and I also have now the Maiden Brooklyn Ride. I never use a loudspeaker. When I'm in Dumbo, sometimes I see a tour come in with an enormous bus in a small little sliver of Brooklyn, and there's somebody walking around with a loudspeaker, and it really distracts from everything else going on in the neighborhood. So that's another example. And then with the ride, I just launched the ride last year, and if you go to my website, you'll see I make sure that people know that we're not riding in a double-decker bus. I don't want to contribute to the congestion, the traffic congestion in the city. So, you know, and I'll wrap up by saying that although I do tours and you could say I am contributing to the oversaturation of tourism in the city, I am also a small business and I'm literally trying to make a living. And I have to do it in a way that respects the community that I'm doing touring. So I think that's what I have to say. But now in terms of your second part of the question, and I'll be really quick about that, there is certainly an enormous amount of development going on throughout New York City, not just Brooklyn, right here in Long Island City, and even where I live in Grace and Brooklyn. A lot of development going on. Okay, and this is also having an effect on tourism in the city and on businesses in the city. When I develop a tour, design a tour, I carefully curate businesses that we go and visit. And it takes time. It took me a year to develop the first 3 tours that I designed for my business. Once I have that set, and there's a change, I have to change things completely around, keeping in mind how long people could walk for. And this has happened on a very frequent basis. So businesses like Brooklyn Art Library, which was once an essential part of the Williamsburg tour, moved out. They were kind of forced out because of the high rents, and it does have an impact on my business. I'm not used to that. As a native Brooklynite, I'm used to businesses having 10, 20-year leases. Now they can't do that anymore. So it's really having an enormous effect on the small businesses that we visit on the tour. I can't, you know, I think that's enough for me.
Do you have anything else to add on that?
Yeah, I mean, when you first posed this question, I kind of felt like it was 2 separate questions. What is the connection between these 2 things? You know, over-tourism and attracting folks to unique experiences. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized they're absolutely connected. by one thing, which is marketing, right? You have these huge numbers of people flowing into the city. They're naturally going to gravitate towards the Met, the 9/11 Museum, all the places mentioned, and it takes a fair amount of marketing to bring them to the off the beaten path spots. I think that can be a really wonderful thing. I think the way that Dom is showcasing New York City makers who are making products here is fantastic for the makers themselves, and also for the way people understand New York City as a place that produces, that manufactures. But in other cases, it can be really dangerous. So if you take Smorgasburg, for example, who's been to Smorgasburg here? All right, who's been there like in the last year? Yeah, it's changed, right? When Smorgasburg started, it was a place that small food entrepreneurs could go to showcase their products to a local audience, to network with landlords, find potential spaces for brick and mortar shops, find investors, find future customers. Now it is overrun by tourists to the degree that locals tend to avoid it. And that's a really kind of a sad thing. I mean, I'm a cyclist commuter. I avoid the bike lane on Kent Avenue. I won't even ride by it on Saturdays and on a nice summer day. So, you have this sort of tension between wanting to shine a light on these wonderful, unique things that really are sort of the local experience of New York, but at the same time, the marketing, I mean, when we start calling things trendy, when we use the words, this is trendy, it undermines the good, real work that people are doing. So in a lot of ways, the labeling something as trendy, you can take the legs out from under a movement by basically framing it as something that's a flash in the pan. That's right now, but won't be here tomorrow. And this sort of marketing effort, in an effort to, a well-meaning effort to shine a light on something, can sometimes be a sort of dangerous thing. So, I think this sort of grappling with over-tourism has caused us to sort of create these little niche, trendy things that occasionally I think could have made real contributions to our lives as New Yorkers, but are now really not for us. They're for visitors.
Yeah, we were talking earlier about how cruise ships are sending the people on the cruises to Smorgasburg, and that's why there's so many tourists there. Can anyone speak to how you think we can do, how New York State or the city or Brooklyn can do that? Yeah, of course.
Answer the previous question?
You can answer, yes, any question, every question.
Great. Sorry, I'm going to make this short. So Augustine is my tourism arm. Untapped Cities, has been a great thing to bring in tourists to Rooftop Reds. And I really haven't penetrated the tourism market almost on purpose because I feel like I built out Rooftop Reds kind of selfishly for New Yorkers, and then tourism would trickle in as the word got out that, there's this rooftop vineyard with a wine bar, with hammocks, with pizza wine movie nights, and blah, 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 blah. Fun activities that revolve around urban agriculture. And Untapped Cities has been amazing to expose us to the tourism, wheel of New York City. Thank you, first of all. But I think it's also been important for us to use where we're at to make it a little bit difficult. We don't have signage on the exterior of our building. We don't have signage on the stairways walking up to Rooftop Reds, like 3 floors up, keep on going. No, that's not what we do. You have to read directions. It's amazing how often people don't go to a website, don't Google things. They'll call the number before they investigate all the information that's on the website. And I think it is one of the things that we've done to kind of tamper back the tourism and make it a local spot, and now bring in really well-organized third parties like Untapped Cities to really drive tourism to Rooftop Reds, but keep it secretive, keep it unique, keep it a little bit hidden, from the tourism eyes. I think that makes us a little bit more unique, a little special for New Yorkers still to find this very well preserved New York thing and special place to go to. So it's work in progress, of course.
Can I add to that?
Yeah, of course.
I just want to add a little bit. You asked the question, what could we do about it? And I feel at least part of the answer is involve the community. Get them involved. I'll give you an example from near where I live. How many have seen the Christmas lights in Dyker Heights or heard about it? Okay. My mom lives right around there. Okay. In that case, it's not for me. I'll be honest with you. I'll rather walk through the neighborhood. There are lots and lots of tourists who go in there, kind of like the smorgasbord effect is happening from Dyker Heights. Well, believe it or not, the community got involved and they won it. In that case, they wanted the tourism. Why do they want the tourism? I suspect that it increases their property values. That might be one of the reasons. But at least they got involved. And I think that's at least part of the answer is get the community involved. If the community doesn't want a smorgasbord, they need a voice. That's my feeling.
Yeah, okay, I agree with you. I also think there should be regulations because it seems like getting scared of tourism a little bit here.
I'm not scared, I just don't need it.
Okay, but so the conversation tonight is how do we manage tourism in a way so that it's sustainable and contributes positively to our communities? So the next thing we're going to talk about is urban sustainability. I think Devin and Anastasia, we can talk about this. Being sustainable urban farms and a winery, how do you use resources differently? I think this is a question that some of us would like to understand. We were talking about how New York City is the pioneer for these urban rooftop farms. Or at least we've been marketed into thinking that we are the pioneers for that. So could you talk about that?
Pioneers for rooftop farms. So what was?
Oh, we had a conversation earlier today about how Brooklyn and the whole rooftop farming seems to be the hip, trendy thing, and people are interested in coming to your winery. They're interested in knowing what's going on. So, can you talk a little bit about how you, I guess, operate, or how do you maintain yourself as an urban winery?
Sustainably. Well, I think first and foremost, I started out Rooftop Reds thinking that we were going to go down the path of, benefiting from grants, stormwater runoff management, DEB grants. I know Brooklyn Grange has gone down that path as well. A lot of lessons learned about the process of actually applying for those grants and how to actually procure them and the hand-holding that's involved, and just being an entrepreneur and pushing forward a project aggressively, and then not meeting certain requirements of grant funding through, like I just mentioned, DEP and stormwater runoff management. So we just kind of went ahead and did exactly what is applicable to the grant, creating both a green roof and a blue roof system. So a green roof system is more so Brooklyn Grange, where soil pretty much covers the entire roof system, roof membrane, and roof surface, and plants, vegetables, leafy greens, tomatoes. I'll let Anastasia talk about that in depth. Vegetation and growth is the primary, covering agent of the rooftop. But Rooftop Reds, we're an urban planter box system for our vineyard. So we have also perimetered in the entire rooftop with recreational areas, synthetic, sustainable turf zones that reduce stormwater runoff through slowing down the runoff process. Both Brooklyn Grange and Rooftop Res are in a combined sewer runoff, stormwater runoff zone. So that means when we have a heavy summer downpour, because we're in these combined sewer zones, if the capacity of the sewers gets to a certain point, the overflow of raw sewage goes into the East River. So that's obviously not good for any of us, living in a healthy environment. And so one of the things that the grant tries to provide is funding to actually implement a green rooftop or a blue rooftop that slows this water runoff, because roofs are traditionally just surfaces that rain hits and goes immediately and quickly into these combined sewer zones. So that's something that Rooftop Reds has really, I think, created a new division of urban agriculture for. Of course, we had applied vineyards to rooftops before we set out on that mission, but a lot of learning about how to implement not only a green roof system, but also a blue roof system that kind of work in tandem to be very sustainable and to help this very real problem with New York City sewer systems.
What's a blue roof?
So a blue roof system would be anything synthetic that assists with the stormwater runoff that will go directly into our sewer system. So I have a turf system that is on a platform that actually zigzags the water in different patterns before it hits the drain. Instead of hitting a rooftop and then running off, because the rooftop is actually pitched in 4 different zones to run directly into the drains, because you don't want water pooling and creating weight or creating leak problems on your rooftop. It's pitched to go right into the drains. That's how a good rooftop should work, right? But we slow down that pitch so we don't have this flash flood scenario. So that's what our blue rooftop does. But really, blue rooftop just defines something that's not vegetative, that's slowing it down, like soil, plants, something growing and alive. It's versus a synthetic petroleum byproduct turf system that we use. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah, well, that's a lot of information.
Right.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
I'm sure we can visit Rooftop Reds and learn all about.
Yeah, sorry if I'm taking up too much time.
Rooftops. No, actually, I wanted to bring the question to Anastasia.
Yeah.
Earlier today, we were talking about sustainability as being part of an ecosystem. So thank you for all the technical information.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to learning more when I visit it. But do you want to talk about what we chatted earlier about being part of the New York City ecosystem? Because that's also important. You can't just have these awesome projects that are isolated from the community. So, yeah, you were so eloquent earlier.
Thank you so much. That's really kind of you. So you've heard this word ecosystem a lot in business these days, but for farmers, it's like an actual concept, your ecosystem, right? And sustainability, also, I would just point out, if you want to ask somebody about sustainability, find anyone who's super old who lived through the Depression, and they can tell you all about it. Because more often than not, ecological sustainability goes hand in hand with financial sustainability. You save money when you buy less crap that you waste. And it's really, nowhere is that truer than on a farm. If you are spending money, especially in New York City, where you're shipping in fertilizers and fungicides and herbicides, we can't afford to do that. We don't have a farm store that we can just go over to and buy these things. So we look to our community. We look to the other businesses that make up the ecosystem of our community. And we're really fortunate that we have a couple of whole bean chocolate makers in the area. When you make whole bean chocolate, you have this cocoa bean, and you put it in like a centrifuge, and it spins really fast. I apologize to chocolate makers for this terrible explanation. But what what flies off is basically a husk. It's cocoa husk. And these chocolate makers are paying their haulers, their trash haulers, to come pick up bags and bags and bags of this husk and throw it away in the landfills. Well, we discovered that it's actually super rich in nitrogen. It basically creates a crust when you use it as a mulch, which helps with water retention, which is great for us because we want to use as little water as possible. And these guys are saving money by letting us pick it up. Our favorite part, it's super lightweight. Something you don't think about that much, but when you're on a rooftop, brownie points for anything that's lightweight. So, we try and basically, okay, you guys all live in New York City, right? When you walk downstairs in the morning and you exit your apartment building on trash day, does anyone else feel like the trash is just like, the piles get taller and taller, it starts really hemming you in? I think about trash constantly. Not only just how can we create less of it, how can we actually take trash out of the system and put it to good use, right? So that's what we're trying to do at Brooklyn Grange. In part, that's part of our sustainability program, is like, what can we actually rescue from the trash system? In Long Island City, Queens, we have a farm on Northern Boulevard and 38th Street. I actually really wish you guys would all come and visit. We're open mid-May through October, Saturdays 11 to 4, all that's on the website. It's free, open to the public every Saturday. It's basically your local neighborhood rooftop farm park. And when you come visit, you can bring a picnic, sit at our table. It's a beautiful long wood table. It's made out of reclaimed water tower wood. Water tower wood is awesome because it's super waterproof, so it can get rained on year after year and it doesn't degrade. The deck around that table is Coney Island boardwalk. They ripped up the Coney Island boardwalk and paved it over. Are you kidding? We were not going to let that get dumpstered. We went out, we split a dumpster with some buddies. It was the heaviest eBay. It's like the heaviest, densest. It's like heavier than marble. It's insanely heavy. It was a pain in the butt. We do not have direct elevator access via freight to that roof. So it was a hub. But these are the kinds of things that we can actually work on as businesses, right? As businesses, we can say, all right, what is it that we can take from this other business that they're throwing away? What can we give them that we're throwing away, that we can't use, to keep this stuff out of the system? And that's what it all comes down to, is trying to create an ecosystem that's as self-sustaining as possible. And when we talk about sustainability, that's really what we're talking about, right? Something that continues, that carries on into the future with minimal human intervention. So that's really what we're trying to do. We took this total barren rooftop and we're trying to create an ecosystem there that takes care of itself as naturally as possible. And that's what sustainability means to us as a business.
And this leads so naturally to the next question that I had, which is, what is the impact of the shared economy, like Airbnb, Uber, Lyft, on travel, on the patterns of the way people travel throughout New York City, both local tourists and tourists coming in from other countries or other states?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to be a mic hug, but since it's so again, I'll just jump in and say that I have really complicated feelings about this. I think a lot of us do. I'm an Airbnb-er for sure when I travel because I love to cook. I love to shop at a market. If I go to Paris, I want to go to the Marché Couvert and buy a bunch of awesome things and bring them home and cook them. I love that we get Airbnb tourists shopping at our farm stands. They come visit the farm, they pick up vegetables, they bring them back to their Airbnb kitchens and prepare them. That's awesome for us. I also, as a native New Yorker, I hear people say that it drives up rents. As a renter, I'm not a property owner. As a renter, that's not great. I don't feel great about that. So, yeah, I have complicated feelings, but at the end of the day, I will say this. First of all, gentrification has been a real problem in New York City since way before Airbnb. And second of all, we've also been a gig economy forever. Like, creatives have flocked to New York since the dawn of time. How many people here are creatives, musicians, actors? Yeah, and cobbling together a living is a lot easier when you have these sharing economies. So I want to be careful also about painting this sharing economy with broad strokes, and one brush, because I have been mixed feelings about Airbnb, but I can say that the stories I'm reading about cab drivers killing themselves because of Uber and Lyft are appalling. And as a cyclist commuter, having new drivers on the road who are looking at screens and not at the road, it is a hazard to our safety and also our air quality, our health. So, I think that I think as a city we should be encouraging people, we should be setting an example. We're walkers, we're New Yorkers, we walk everywhere, we take public transit. We should be getting people to do that instead of making it easier for them to get a cheap car ride. But, again, it's really hard to paint broad strokes, so I think that this is, it's a really I'm actually really, really eager to hear what you guys think of this. Can I kick it over to you as a transport?
Thank you. I think one of the positive aspects, for example, of Airbnb for visitors is that I live in Crown Heights, for example, and in Crown Heights or in Bed-Stuy, how many hotels are there? Very few, like barely any. There are a few on Atlantic Avenue, but barely any. So I think the positive impact that Airbnb has in these type of neighborhoods is that it allows them to go there, experience what the neighborhood is like, discover it for themselves, whereas otherwise, before Airbnb, when there were only hotels to stay in, they would probably have been stuck in Manhattan or in places that are more like hotels friendly, whereas now they can explore these different neighborhoods and experience this for themselves. So I think that's one positive impact that Airbnb might have on, at least on the hotel industry.
I also have complicated feelings about this. Because on the one hand, as a resident of New York City, I've heard all the time this complaint about the congestion, the traffic congestion. And I just heard about a report that basically there's causality between the number of the number of ride shares going on in New York City and traffic congestion. And to me, I'm like, duh, of course. You're adding, in addition to the yellow and green cabs, the penny cabs, the cyclists with City Bike, and also Lyft and Via and Car2Go and so on, there will definitely be, as a result, more congestion. On the other hand, people do need to make a living. So it's very complicated. And also, like we were just talking about, concerning Airbnb, I think, again, complicated feelings about it. People are coming on my tours who are staying at Airbnbs in Brooklyn. Okay? There are a slew of hotels in Brooklyn today, okay, and other parts of the outer boroughs of New York City as well. But Airbnb gives people a low-cost opportunity to stay in Brooklyn and see the sights and not have to make the trip from Manhattan to Brooklyn. Relatively speaking, I don't have an exact number, but from what I understand, the overwhelming majority of tourism is in Manhattan. And part of that is because there are more places to stay, or historically more places to stay in Manhattan than in the outer borough. So Airbnb opens up the door to the outer boroughs. And also Airbnb has programs like Airbnb experiences. So if you're an Airbnb host and you also want to show your guests around where they're staying, you could sign up and become an Airbnb experience like I did. So I have complicated feelings about it. In terms of, we use this term gentrification a lot too, and I kind of wonder what the definition of gentrification is. Because from what I understand of gentrification, it means somebody coming into a neighborhood, maybe from outside of the state, and buying a home and fixing it up and so on, and doing their best to make their little corner of New York City better. Okay. I don't really believe that what we're all witnessing is gentrification. I think it's a really orchestrated attempt to displace one community for another with development. And it has nothing to do with the people moving in. It really doesn't. It has to do with the developers and with the city government, and even to a large extent the media's support of it. So to me, that's not gentrification. That's overdevelopment. It's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, of course.
I hear you, but also there are a tremendous number of developers and just investors buying property and not living in it. Like, and that's a huge problem. And if you, I live in Greenpoint. I've been there since 2005. I grew up in Manhattan, but I'm a transplant. And when I moved to Greenpoint, it was families and folks who lived there. And now my parents moved to California in 2005, and they'll come visit and they'll Airbnb, and they'll be in a building in North Brooklyn and by McCarran Park or something, and the whole building's empty. Like, it's just all Airbnb apartments. And they drive up the rent. I will say, and look, again, this has been a problem since way before Airbnb. But as a small business owner, so we have 15 full-time year-round staff at Brooklyn Grange. It is increasingly difficult to pay a living wage when the cost of living in the city is so high. And I look at our staff, and there is a lack of diversity at our staff because, frankly, it takes certain socioeconomic brackets to be able to afford to work for companies like Brooklyn Grange, creative companies that people want to work for. You want to feel good about the work you're doing. That's the number one thing I hear from job applicants. I want to work for a company I feel good about working for, that's doing some good in the world. That shouldn't be something that only the privileged get to do. But when the cost of living is so high, you have to have a safety net to take a job with certain companies, because you really are living hand to mouth in this town. And that bums me out. Like, as a public school kid in New Yorker, like, that's the thing that really bugs me.
Yeah. It's complicated. I wouldn't say, I mean, you can't say that Airbnb is the reason why there's all this overdevelopment. Okay, it's not that alone. But definitely there are people who are, who have no interest in the community whatsoever, parking their money. Who knows how they got that money? They're parking it in what they believe is a safe place in some huge investment. And it's having an effect on the community. I mean, how many people know that the population of Brooklyn is 2.6 million people roughly? Anybody know that? Raise your hand if you know it. Do you think that this is the most it's ever been, those same people who raise their hand? Back in the 1950s, it was higher and higher. So this housing crisis that we're all talking about, I don't know what we're talking about. Maybe we're talking about affordable housing, but with that, maybe we also want to consider real estate for the sake of business, maybe a place to work. That also needs to be considered as well. So it's really complicated. I'm with you on that. It's mind-boggling, and it's not just in North Brooklyn. I'm in South Brooklyn. There's developments left and right, and a lot of it is shoddy. And nobody even wants to do it. Even on Bedford Avenue on South 4th Street, there's a building on the corner. It's condemned. It's a brand new building. So they're not even putting some effort in making the place even habitable. So I'm very, very concerned about that myself. And it does. And just imagine also. And I'm not saying this is bad or good. I'm not saying it's bad or good. I'm just saying it does have an effect. Let's say a big development goes up and it actually does fill up with people. So now in a neighborhood where there was a certain amount of people, now there's an enormous influx of new people coming in the neighborhood. It does make a huge change. However you feel about it, it does make a different change. A change in the neighborhood, so it's no longer the same. I was thinking about this on the way over. I wonder if one day somebody's going to come up with an idea of going into, let's say, 432 Park Avenue, that really the tallest building in the Western Hemisphere, and doing a tour inside a building, visiting all the people living in the building, or something like that. It just, I don't think it can happen. I'm more of a Jane Jacobs kind of guy. And that's my feeling about the city.
Okay, so, you want to say something? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I'll once again make this short for everyone. I feel a lot of the conflict that you guys have mentioned, especially Anastasia, with the hiring process and bringing in diverse, talented folk that live in the city. I actually outsource a few of my job positions, specifically web development and also social media. So that's something that I go to outside markets that I can actually afford. So I hire a lot from the Finger Lakes, and I keep the money in the economy that I support, and try to highlight and spotlight within New York City. So I do feel good about that, but I also feel bad about the fact that I can't hire more diverse hires and pay livable wages for the same exact job in New York City. But I'm also conflicted because I Airbnb my apartment. So, you know, there's the catch-22. And then, of course, on my website, I strongly encourage people to walk. I put how long of a walk it is by minutes, by mileage, and I make that very clear, I think, that this is doable, you should do this. But of course, I'm a business that relies on people accessing, you know, the Navy Yard with ease, which is, as Anastasia knows, probably, you know, the biggest vice around my head. So it's, you know, I definitely have driving directions as well, clearly stated, because I don't want to feel, you know, 200 phone calls on a Saturday because everybody is trying to get up to the Rooftop vineyard and have a glass of wine. So, you know, if you try to strike a balance. I don't think there's any perfect model to what that balance is yet. But we live in New York. We're hustling. We're trying to make a living as well. I mean, I am trying to supplement my income from what I pay myself through my business so I can hire more talent, but then in doing so, I make compromises by Airbnb out my apartment and setting a plan in motion so I can be, you know, proactive on all these issues. So it's really a mixed bag.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hearing what everybody's saying, and I go through the same struggles. Believe me, in my business, I'm never going to be a millionaire. Last year, I made an effort. I got interns. So I run an Indeed, and I posted a spec, and I got a couple of interns to help out. And that was my way of hiring locally. That was the best I could do. But one other thing I could do is try to get to know whatever parties that I'm dealing with. So if I print something, I do, for example, I print tote bags. Come on the tour, everybody gets a tote bag. Those tote bags are printed locally. If I gave somebody a t-shirt, it's made domestically and it's printed locally. So I do my best to print locally. I do have a web guy who is in Montenegro. I went to Montenegro and I stayed at his home. We're friends now. So I do my best to make connections within the community. That's one thing that, you know, I think we can all agree on. We try to do outreach within the community. That's why I'm so glad we're actually at the local here. The local, from what I understand, is really, really good at making outreach to the community and Impact Travel. It was a 5-minute conversation in every space, you know. So that's what I think. That's my intention. At least it seems like it's the intention of a lot of people here.
Well, that's the whole reason why I feel like it's very important to have a conversation like this. Do you have something to say, or can I open this up to the audience? Yes. Whoever has a question, please come up here so we can hear you. And this is Kelly, everybody, the Executive Director of Impact Travel Alliance.
So particularly for Untapped cities, but then anyone else who wants to answer as well. With this event, I think what we're really focused on is finding the hidden gems and the things that are sustainable and that inherently support a local community, just from drinking a glass of wine or eating a salad, anything that's kind of up in that everyday lifestyle. How would you, as an average consumer, be able to find that off-the-beaten path adventure, and how would you also book that experience knowing that you are supporting the local community and the culture and the environment of that destination?
Thank you. Great question.
Thank you. So we have 5 articles a day that highlight things that are happening in New York. And when I say like, things happening in New York, I mean like on the artistic sphere, historic things. So we are a great resource for this to discover the hidden gems around you. And then in the experiences that we offer, several of them actually we make very little profit on. We do them because we believe in the experience, in the message, and the impact that it has on the people we partner with. I'm going to give you one example. We have, everybody knows Ellis Island, of course. We have roughly 3.5 million people who go to Ellis Island every year. But they go on the north side of Ellis Island, the one that's in New York State. But the New Jersey state actually owns the 2/3 that are in the south of this island. And there you have an abandoned hospital, which is where you would have been sent had you arrived sick in the United States. So you have like contagious disease wards like for measles or tuberculosis, all these fun things. And this hospital is part of our history as a city, but also our history as a nation, because this is where most immigrants would come to the United States. They would be one of the main port of entry. So every time you buy a ticket for the hard hat tour of the abandoned hospital of Ellis Island on Untapped cities, almost all of the profit goes to, like, we keep something that's very minimal, then we buy the ferry tickets from statue cruisers, and then like the vast majority of it goes to Ellis Island directly to preserve the buildings. So if you go on a tour today and then you come back like 5 years from now, they might have renovated the building partially because you came on this tour. And just to give you a scale, in a year and a half, we're going to raise in a way for them over $100,000. So that's money that they can reinvest directly in preserving the building and preserving the history. So we believe that, I agree the aspect, like the trendy aspect is very tricky because once you get branded like trendy or whatever, it attracts naturally a different kind of crowd, but I forgot what I was saying. But I think it's important to keep these places, to talk about these places that are not necessarily trendy, but just to spread the message about these places that if you don't know about them, they might just disappear. Like when we started doing the tour, there's this amazing like staff house where the doctor used to live. Like the ceiling dropped by like many inches since the first time we did the tour, and this is because these buildings are falling apart. So if you go on a tour, you can have a direct impact in preserving these buildings, and that's one example of things that we do where we can contribute to preserving our built environment.
Would you like to answer that? First of all, I will just say that if you guys don't go on Untapped City's website, sure. It's amazing. It's not for tourists. It's really like an incredible resource. There's a ton for like being very involved in like green infrastructure and city planning, and I find that it's incredibly informative on that front. And I always learned something I didn't know before. So thank you. But yeah, I think I think that we can all be better about it as New Yorkers. I love when my friends come to visit. Does this happen to you guys where your friends come to visit and you have to like put together a day? And at the end of it, you're like, God, that was so fun. What are we going to do tomorrow? And they're like, let's just, maybe like stay local. And you're like, no, there's so many things to see. It's because it's fun. We forget. We forget about all the incredible things that are going on in our backyard. I think we need to make more time for that as a community, for visiting and supporting as locals the places that are making our neighborhoods more interesting, our communities more interesting. My big one is I have not yet reached out. I don't even know if they lead tours or host visitors. Crown Finish Caves? They do? Oh, cool. Do you want to cities?
No, but they host events like beer and cheese pairing like several times a year, and it's amazing.
Yeah. So this is a cheese cave in Gowanus where they're not making the cheese there, but they're buying cheese and I'm just gonna stop. But see, this is something that I've been meaning to get into. I've not been there, and I think we need to be better about this ourselves. There's a number. Take a tour with Untapped Cities. Take a tour with take a tour with Tom. Take a tour with Turnstile Tours. They do amazing tours at the Navy Yard. This is a historical gem. It's right in our backyards. And we have opportunities constantly to visit them, and we don't. And I think that that's really a huge thing that we all need to be cognizant of, is these places will not stick around if we're not supporting them in the off season, if we're not filling in the cracks of the tourism waves.
And to add to what you were just saying, I would say that, yeah, make it your job. If you're new to New York City, new to Brooklyn, make it your job to learn about what's going on in the neighborhood. And I'm always learning, and I'm here all my life, you know, like that. I was recently at, there was a talk where George Washington was doing a presentation about, you know, his role during the Revolutionary War in Brooklyn, New York. It was all the way in Bensonhurst. This is about sustainability, and you know, one thing we make the most of is trash, right? And one of the most amazing tours I've ever done was to go to the municipal recycling facility on 30th Street in Sunset Park. And it is amazing to learn about where your garbage goes and how some of that gets recycled. And I felt like a little kid, you know, learning about, oh wow, this is where our steel goes. Oh, that's what that rail line is for. So there's a lot of these hidden gems. You know, I did the hard hat tour myself. You know, I was invited by my friends to do that, and I think it was wonderful. I'm proud to say that actually most of the people going on tours are from the New York metropolitan area. And it's not unusual for people to come on a Red Hook tour who just moved to Red Hook. So I'm really glad about that, and I hope that you do that too and learn about how sustainable, give us some credit. We are sustainable in our own way. We're having this little get together here. We are concerned. And I think New York as a whole are concerned as well, certainly. So people learn our city.
I always feel like I'm missing New York all the time because I just have my kind of head in the sand trying to push forward Rooftop Reds and what we're doing in our sustainable mission. And that's a shame, but I hear about New York and its greatness all the time from my customers and, you know, through being involved in having my year on the railroad for, you know, Brooklyn, Grange, and Untapped cities, and down in the future, your tours as well. So there we go. So, you know, this isn't a sob story. This is you know, just entrepreneurial life in the startup world and trying to expand something that I really believe in. But it's also, and now I lost my train of thought. I was saying you
just into it, man.
You've inspired me. I think it's we're in such a wonderful city. There's so much that's being offered here, and one of the things that I keep on coming back to because it's very visible from where I work and operate out of is the local community and the low-income communities that surround the Brooklyn Navy Yard. And so that's something that I see physically, visually, you know, from my perch on the rooftop vineyard at Rooftop Reds in the Brooklyn Navy Yard. And I continually see the Navy Yard developing and growing and bringing in investment money and building out a tech center and all these things that, you know, show economic success, and I don't see anything reflected in that being given back to the community that's literally right outside the gates. You know, one example that I always come back to in my mind is that when I walk from Rooftop Ridge, which is at the Sand Street, Navy Street gate entrance of the Navy Yard, it's the gate entrance that's closest to Dumbo. Okay, so it's very close to the York Street subway station in Dumbo. And I walk through these gates and I walk towards York Street, J Street, to the York Street subway station, and there's been the same scaffolding for the past 3 years that lines these projects, and nothing is being constructed. Nothing is changing. They just live in a scaffold zone, okay? And it's terrible. I think it's terrible. It looks terrible. You know, they have these terrible fluorescent lights, and you're walking in this tunnel, and it's not appropriate. There's not action going on there, and there's so much action going on in the Navy Yard. We got the ferry system coming in. There's a new trolley system being developed. Building 77 is coming in. All these cool Restaurants are coming in. There's a $2.5 billion tech investment coming in. WeWorks is moving its headquarters there. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And right across the street, we're in scaffold zone with no development, no change, no movement. And so, over the past 2 years, through very fun recreational events, I've been raising funds just for a scholarship program, just to get back to this community. I don't have big investment. I don't have ties to places that could really move the needle of this scholarship program very quickly, but I've raised $13,000 in the last 2 years. My goal is $25,000, and hopefully I'll meet that goal by the end of this year. And I'm going to give it all to SUNY and CUNY school systems, and I have an agreement, a partnership with them to identify through the employment center in the Brooklyn Navy Yard to target kids in this community and provide an endowment scholarship. And I hope that even though $25,000 is a pittance in changing people's lives, hopefully it will maybe inspire other businesses that have a lot of coin in the Navy Yard, a lot of this investment, to redirect a fraction of that effort to the local community. I mean, I just can't stand here and do nothing. And so if you guys want to come to Cornhole for charity, I do cornhole tournaments every Wednesday at Rooftop Reds. It costs $10 for a team of 2. You get a beer, and all that money goes to charity. Also, every October, every bottle of wine that you purchase at Rooftop Reds, $5 of that bottle of wine goes to the scholarship fund. So little baby steps. I will make them bigger in the future.
Well, that's so wonderful. Thanks for sharing. Does anyone else have any other questions? Okay. Do you want to come up here? And we could probably talk about this forever, but we'll try this one. Okay, so, and then Dave.
Thank you, Steve. I was wondering earlier whether or not you were working with any local communities, the high schools, the colleges, the grad schools, in regards to internships and even support scholarships. So it's kind of like a three-point question. One is, are any of the rest of the group working with internships at all? You had mentioned you're doing something with internships, but that your web develops in Montenegro. I'm wondering, wasn't the web developer?
I can explain.
Okay, but I was just wondering, when I think about all the talent, whether it's technology talent that's in these schools, whether it's artists that can come and help work in schools, or even just do basic work, what are you doing with them? Do these schools even have programs in the first place to get to people like you? And how you work with them?
So to clarify about the Montenegro thing, that was just my way of trying to connect with a business, with an individual who does work on my website. In addition to that, though, last year I did bring on 2 interns to help with my business. I didn't go through a school, I went through Indeed, and that's how I brought them on. However, over the years, since starting the business in 2011, I have also approached schools. I have done that as well. And for whatever reason, it just seems very, very difficult. At least with the schools, I can't tell you which ones off the top of my head. Except for, I even went to my old high school, but I had a difficult time, and it was my intention to bring on interns and help with things. That were in line with whatever their course curriculum of their choice was. That was important. Make sure that we're not just doing our dirty work, but actually would contribute to whatever they plan to do later in life. Exactly. Or perhaps credit. I think that's also something like that. There's another thing I could say about schools and so on is that, in my case, I don't bring in a ton of revenue. But one thing I can offer to nonprofits, and I don't know if it's exactly related to what I'm saying, I do offer vouchers to my tours. And what they could do is they could auction them off, and they could keep the proceeds. And that's the best I could do in my life.
Yeah, education so I'm a New York City public school kid, and when I was growing up, we definitely didn't have money to take like school buses up to the Hudson Valley to visit farms. So I really had no experience growing anything, and when I started urban farming, it was like my eyes were opened to this whole new world, and that was a huge driver for me when we started Brooklyn Grange. I really wanted to share that with other city kids. So we started doing educational visits, and first it was the private school teachers that found us, because they're the ones who have the flexibility and the time on their hands, and they said, we have a field trip budget. And so we set the fee at whatever the first school offered us, I think, and then we charged for these school trips. And as soon as I got the request from the Title I school, I said, don't worry about the fee, we'll make an exception, just get up here. And I made another exception and another. It was like 10 hours of exceptions later. Also, I am not a trained educator, so when kids ask questions like, how do the chickens lay eggs without a rooster, I'm like, oh, are they old enough to know that yet? I swear to God, a science teacher once actually said, how do they lay eggs without a rooster? I'm like, great, you're the science teacher. But I realized very quickly that this was not a product that we were offering in a marketplace. This was a service that we were offering to the community. And my partner, Gwen, God love her, went through all the legal legwork during the government shutdown of forming a 501c3 nonprofit, and we created City Growers. We hired one employee, and we let it, we said, let us know how we can support you, but IRS requires, it's a totally distinct organization with its own finances, because they're tax exempt. And that organization has grown. At this point, they are in classrooms, they're in school gardens around the city. They've brought almost 40,000 kids to our farms since 2011. Over 70% of those kids come up without paying any fees or paying a vastly reduced fee. These are Title I public school kids. And honestly, it is awesome to see them pull a carrot out of the ground for the first time. The farm is the great equalizer. These kids, they don't think about their body image or what they're wearing and what their friend is. They just get excited for 1 second, and all goes away and they're excited. And that's awesome. But what the one thing the high school kids always ask? They point to the farmers farming, is this their job? Are they getting paid? They want to know if they're getting paid. And that's a New York City kid for you. That's a little entrepreneur. And I love that. And we really take that seriously. Job creation was a big goal of ours, and it's the thing that we really struggle with, because farming is a really lean enterprise. Again, it is hard to pay a living wage to a farmer in New York City. So we don't have an internship program per se, but we've started offering educational workshops. And I'm gonna be honest, it's a real balance of the same teacher will teach soil science and how to determine whether your soil's good to grow in, and floral crown design. One kind of subsidizes the other a little bit. Education is a lost thing, but it is something that we are all really obligated to do, particularly those of us in the agriculture community. And I didn't know about the scholarship fund. That's awesome, Devin. There is a gap. Our grandparents knew how to do this stuff. Our parents kind of lost it. We have to bridge that gap somehow. And so I feel like any farmer in 2018 also has to be a teacher. It's our obligation. So we don't have a traditional internship program, but we're out there. We're partnering with City Growers. We partner with an organization called Refugee Immigrant Fund to bring asylum seekers up to the farm. All of that stuff is available on our website. But I just want to thank you for bringing up education as a huge, huge component of the important, this work has been really, really important.
And also it's fun when you mentioned the kids being excited about working on the farm, because I had the same experience when we had 10 years old students who were on a tour of the remnants of what's left of Dutch New Amsterdam today in Lower Manhattan, and they're like, Peter Stuyvesant, that's so cool. And everybody's like, oh yeah, cool, do you think it's cool? That's great, amazing. And you see that these histories are speaking to these kids in a way that is really fun and engaging. So that's when we really work a lot with schools and kids, and we also have internships for the web magazine. So since we publish articles every day, we have interns who are also helping us writing the content. So we work with different universities from Columbia, NYU, CUNY, or just a great range of people.
So it's a little harder for people to wrap their minds around high school interns at Rooftop Reds, because they they just think of winery and they don't think of farm. And I think that's honestly because it's such a new concept that they just wrap it in with alcohol and not with the real, uniqueness that we brought to the table, which is actually the vineyard. We sell alcohol, we sell wine, but that's when we have normal operating hours at a certain designated time. But all throughout the day, we have the opportunity to educate, and we started working with city growers, and we had several city grower high school groups come up to the rooftop and plant baby grapevines, and we learn about propagating hormones and how we graft, and we're also doing a whole viticulture and vineyard management series this year. So we really are refocusing on the farming and educational aspect at Rooftop Reds, but it is a hurdle for us to engage the people that we really want to educate, which is youth. So that's still kind of the signal that we're working with and trying to figure out the best path forward. But we are working with the Workforce Development Center at the Brooklyn Navy Yard, working specifically with college students from Long Island University, from Brooklyn College, that are in hotel and restaurant management, and also in culinary pursuits, to work with Rooftop Reds that are 21. And so they can see the whole bar business, this whole unique model of how you can use urban agriculture, a farm, to really generate a lot of interest and a lot of, I guess, grasp for a local community to come and support, yes, an alcohol-based business, a wine bar, more or less. I think we can use, and we should use, urban agriculture as a vehicle to support business initiatives. I mean, why the hell not? So.
I also just want to be careful, though, that we're not letting businesses off the hook for creating real opportunity for real people to have real and meaningful jobs. Elizabeth Yams here of Uprose, which is an amazing organization in Sunset Park that works with the intersection of racism and climate change, talks about Industry City and how a lot of jobs were promised there, and how the reality is there are jobs for high school kids to get in the summer and not for a parent to raise their family. They're not salary, real jobs. And I really I think education is hugely important, and internships offer great opportunities, but I also want to really pressure businesses to, instead of offering 2 part-time, and this is something that I'm telling myself and our business as much as any other, we struggle with this, but instead of creating 2 part-time opportunities or 2 internships, maybe try putting someone on salary. Yeah, you're going to pay the payroll tax, and yeah, you're going to pay the workers' comp, and it's going to be more expensive for your business. Labor and human capital is expensive, but do it. It's worth it.
Yeah. Can I add one thing? Just on that note, I've hired and put both of my interns on salary for this year. So it really works. I mean, it really works. These are talented people and a talented employment center that put me in touch with the right interns. And, if there's opportunity for them to work within my business, that just makes my job easier, honestly. So anyways, I was really thrilled about that.
I was just thinking about everything that you guys are talking about. And I started my business after getting laid off. For 16 years, I worked for high-tech companies like Boosting Technologies. I worked for Bell Labs. I worked for a lot of startups that they were producers of network security and networking equipment. And I got laid off. And that was the impetus, the motivation to start my business. And the businesses that we visit on my tour, because of the pressures of doing business in New York City that you guys are elucidating us on, are very, very creative about their approach to business. And on my tours, I contrast the industrial revolutionary history of Brooklyn with who's making in Brooklyn today. We might visit a building where it was a huge building, they were building shoes, they were making shoes. And then our next stop, we go into a place like the Brooklyn Shoe Space, where it's a shared space, a co-working space, where individual producers, individual designers are creating their prototype shoes, and the business owner later started another concern called Brooklyn Shoe Factory in Westside Williamsburg, where if you create the prototype at their space, you can now produce the shoe in Brooklyn as well. And that's just one example of the types of businesses that we visit on the tour. So it's not just, of course, all of these businesses, like us, are concerned about hiring people. Okay, they want to grow, they want to expand. The only way to do that is if they hire people. But they also are very creative about just staying in business as well. And many of them share my story. They got laid off, and they need to do something, they need a living, they don't want to leave Brooklyn, they don't want to leave New York City, and so they have very creative approaches to starting a business. So fortunately, there are actually a lot of resources for people, free resources available. When I started my business, I took a course called Fast Track that was offered by New York State Small Business Development. And I still go to New York State Small Business Development today to ask advice about how to grow my business. There's another organization called SCORE. I don't know what the acronym stands for, but it's for retired professionals. And they can help you build a business plan. They can help you think things through. So you can take your passion and your energy and actually create a business for you. So that's my addition to what we're going to talk about.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to applaud all of you for being so honest about the hardships of having a business in New York City and a sustainable business on top of that. So thank you for that. And this is the very last question, and I'm going to wrap it up. I want each of you to tell me what your number one sustainable hidden gem experience is, but it can't be from your own company. Okay?
If you haven't been to the largest green roof in New York City, it's the rooftop on top of the Javits Center, and it's absolutely amazing. This building is extremely sustainable, and just a quick note on this, you can see the building, so it's all blue glass, right? And so they used to be the #1 bird killer in New York City because birds would crash on the blue glass because they wouldn't see themselves. So they changed all the glass to be more reflective so that now birds don't crash on that. So now they are no longer the #1 bird killer in New York City. So this is also another example of how a building that
this is an unfair question, first of all. You can have the coolest answer.
This is a good example of how sustainability can come from anywhere, and they have hives on their green roof. It's really an amazing experience. They give tours for free several times a year. We organize tours there sometimes as well, and it's very unexpected. So.
Dom stole mine with the recycling center on 2nd Avenue, Sunset Park. Okay, so I'm going to keep it local. I live in Greenpoint. Does anyone else live in Greenpoint? You might know the local name for our sewage treatment plant. It's not a nice word. The S word. It's just not a nice word. You can look it up online, I'm sure. But it's a much maligned sewage treatment plant because for many years it stank. It stank with the whole neighborhood. It's very overwhelmed by our sewage treatment. If anyone doesn't know about the way we process sewage in New York City, it's a really fascinating thing, and it is complex. Devin gave it a good shot, but it is worth doing a little more research on. Perfect place to do that research is at the Newtown Creek Wastewater Treatment Plant. They did a tour on Valentine's Day. I know, exactly like you're like, what should I do on Valentine's Day? What's really romantic? Let's talk about how New York City processes fecal matter. Oh, look at fecal matter. It's great. It's a really fascinating place. There's also a great podcast called SHIT Train. I don't remember whose podcast. It might be, I don't remember what it is, but check it out. Yeah, I don't remember. Check it out. You can Google it and it'll pop up. And it talks about how New York City processes its solid municipal waste, and it is fascinating. We have a long way to go, but we've very quietly been doing some very dirty work to make this process more sustainable. It's really cool stuff.
So I already mentioned the MRF. Definitely make a trip out there if you can. It's a lot of fun. I would say I have two. One is, and I think they actually have a place here as well in my own city. Anybody ever heard of Recycle a Bicycle? It's a really wonderful organization. It's a nonprofit, and they take bikes that other people don't need, and they recycle them. They salvage the parts of the good parts, and they make new bikes, and they sell them to the public to fund their programs. And their programs are, part of the program is to teach young people and adults how to maintain and fix their bikes. And I think that's wonderful. And I'm not so sure if it fits in the sustainable category, but we're actually we're talking about urban farming, and there was a time in Brooklyn's history where this was the most fertile part of the United States. Okay, and you may want to pick up a book called Cabbages in Kings County. And if you went to the Benson store, you may recall that people are farming in their front yards. Okay, when I was growing up, we had a farm growing tomatoes and eggplants and figs and lettuce in our front yard. But one thing you can do is get in touch with nature. And you may not be aware of it, but there's a marine park way in South Brooklyn. There's the Marine Park Salt Marsh. And it's a really wonderful place. And they also, with some imagination, give you an idea of what the waterfront of Brooklyn was like back in the 17th century and further back. So that's my contribution.
Okay, I just wanted to see a raise of hands. Who likes sushi? Is that so? Let's at least 75% of the people, maybe 80%. So, my general manager at Rooftop Reds, TJ Provenzano, I don't know if you know Anastasia, but he's done a lot of work with Brooklyn Grange in the past as well. He started up a sustainable sushi omakase restaurant in the East Village called Mayanoki. Okay, so it's the only sustainable sushi restaurant in New York City, and everybody here that loves sushi is not eating sushi sustainably. And we're at a sustainable, panel here talking about how we can make New York City more sustainable. You can go support this business. It's all domestically caught, sustainably caught fish. It's 15 courses. It's very reasonable for omakase, a true omakase session. It is $95, so it is an experience, but it's an 8-seat bar, and it's absolutely freaking phenomenal. There's a lot of education involved about what type of fish are caught, how we sustainably catch fish, and it's kind of the counterpart, I like to think, of these land sustainable businesses that we have, and we forget about the ocean so much. 75% of our Earth, and we are literally making numerous species of fish extinct. One of them being bluefin tuna. So it's unbelievable to me. There was just an article in Eater about the top 30 sushi restaurants in New York City, and they did not mention Mayanoki. And then in the article right below that article, there was a whole piece about how this really high-end sushi restaurant paid $367,000 for a bluefin tuna fish. One fish. $367,000. And that's what makes, the media list, that's the popping headline, okay? And we all eat this up, literally. And so if we all believe in sustainability and we like sushi, I would recommend mine.
Well, thank you so much, everybody. And like I said, I hope this is just the beginning. This is a conversation that we should be having every single day, leave everybody with this question. What if you could change the world simply by changing the way you travel? So think about the impact on your travel. Think about these guys' tips and come support the businesses. Thank you everyone for showing up.
Thank you.
Hey guys, I hope you found that informational, and I hope you could hear it.
It was the best. Absolutely fantastic work.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm so happy. All right. Okay. So tune in next time for more sustainability in travel. Peace out.